They call it the Star of Doom. It's a joke in the tabloids, a whisper in the boardrooms, and a curse in my own home. They say that anyone who gets close to Marcus Sterling gets hurt. They say I'm a walking disaster, a black cloud that swallows light. But I know the truth. The curse isn't magic. It isn't bad luck. The curse is hate. My name is Marcus Sterling. I am the CEO of the Sterling Group, an empire worth billions. I wear Italian suits tailored to the millimeter. I sign checks that could buy small countries. But when I walk into the headquarters of my own company, I don't see respect. I see fear. And in the eyes of my cousin, Tanner, I see something far worse. I see disgust. To Tanner and his father, my adoptive uncle Cyrus, I am not a CEO. I am an intruder, a mistake, a stain on their pristine white lineage. Let me take you back to the day the curse nearly broke me. It was a Tuesday. I was sitting in my office, staring at a pile of resumes. I needed a bodyguard. My last 3 had quit within a week. Brakes cut on my car. Strange men following me home. The threats were escalating. The door slammed open. No knock, no announcement, just Tanner. He walked in like he owned the oxygen in the room. Tanner is tall, pale, with a smile that looks like a split in a piece of rotting fruit. He was wearing a suit that cost more than most people make in a year, and he wore it with the arrogance of a man who has never worked a day in his life. "Still looking for protection, Marcus?" he asked. His voice was loud, grating. He didn't sit. He perched on the edge of my desk, kicking a stack of files onto the floor. "Why bother? Nobody wants to take a bullet for, well, look at you." I kept my face stone. "Get out, Tanner." He laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. "You know, I saw your driver outside. The poor guy looks terrified. You really bring down the property value just by existing, don't you? Look at this office. Dark, gloomy, just like you. You've got this whole primitive chieftain vibe going on, but it doesn't work in a skyscraper, Marcus. You look like you should be hauling crates, not signing contracts." "I'm busy, Tanner." Busy pretending to be civilized. He leaned in, his cologne overpowering, smelling like alcohol and old money. "My dad and I were talking. We think it's time you step down. The shareholders are getting nervous. They want a face they can trust. A face that looks clean. You know, you look like you crawled out of a chimney." My jaw tightened. Every word was a calculated strike at my skin, my heritage, my very existence. He knew exactly what he was doing. He used safe words, but the venom was clear. "I'm not stepping down," I said, my voice low. "Then you'll die," Tanner shrugged, checking his watch. "The curse, remember? Or maybe just bad genetics. Your mother was weak, wasn't she? That poverty mindset. She didn't know how to survive in our world, and neither do you." Before I could respond, the intercom buzzed. "Mr. Sterling, there's a young woman here for the bodyguard position." Tanner's eyes lit up. "Oh, this I have to see. Bring her in." The door opened, and Nina walked in. She didn't look like a bodyguard. She was small. She was wearing a faded gray hoodie, jeans that had seen better days, and sneakers that were held together by hope. She had a messy bun and tired eyes, but she stood with a stillness that caught my attention. Tanner took one look at her and exploded into laughter. He slapped his knee, tears forming in his eyes. "This," Tanner wheezed, pointing a finger right at her face. "This is the cavalry. Oh, Marcus, this is perfect. She looks like a beggar. Did you find her digging through the dumpster out back? 2 rats finding each other in the sewer. It's romantic, really." Nina didn't flinch. She just looked at him, boring holes into his soul. "I'm here for the job," she said. Her voice was calm. "Job?" Tanner sneered, walking around her, looking her up down with a look of pure revulsion. "Honey, the janitorial staff meets in the basement. You smell like public transportation. Look at you. You're skinny, you're dirty, and you look like you haven't eaten a steak in your life. You think you can protect him? He's a big target. You're a twig." "I can fight," Nina said. "Fight?" Tanner scoffed. He snapped his fingers. 3 massive men, his personal security goons, stepped into the office from the hallway. They were huge, steroid-pumped mountains of muscle. "These are bodyguards. You're a joke. But hey, I'm feeling generous. If you can last 10 seconds with them, maybe I won't have security throw you out into the street where you belong." I stood up. "Tanner, enough." "Sit down, boy," Tanner barked at me, his voice changing from mocking to commanding. "Let the adults handle business. Go ahead, boys. Teach the gutter rat a lesson." The 3 men moved toward Nina. I reached for the phone to call security, but I stopped. Nina moved. It was like watching water flow around a rock. The first guy threw a punch that could have cracked a wall. Nina ducked, grabbed his wrist. used his own momentum, and slammed him face first into the carpet. Crack. The second guy lunged. She swept his legs. He hit the ground so hard the windows rattled. The third guy hesitated. Nina didn't. She stepped inside his guard, a quick strike to the solar plexus, and he folded like cheap laundry. It took 15 seconds. Nina stood over them, barely breathing hard. She looked at Tanner. Am I hired? Tanner's face went from red to purple. His ego was fractured. He looked at the groaning men, then at Nina, then at me. You, Tanner spluttered. You freak, you brute. That's all you people know, isn't it? Violence, just savagery. You don't belong in a corporate office. You belong in a cage. He backed toward the door, pointing a shaking finger at me. You think this changes anything, Marcus? You think hiring this stray dog makes you safe? You're still an outsider. You're still the charcoal stain on a white silk sheet, and we are going to bleach you out. He slammed the door. I looked at Nina. She was adjusting her hoodie. You're hired, I said. The weeks that followed were a nightmare. Tanner and Uncle Cyrus weren't just bullying me anymore. They were hunting me, and they were using psychological warfare. We had to attend the annual Sterling Gala. It was a black tie event. I bought Nina a gown, a sleek black dress that made her look like a warrior queen. When we walked into the ballroom, silence fell. For a second, I felt proud, but then Tanner's voice cut through the room like a knife. Ladies and gentlemen, he shouted, holding a glass of champagne high. Look who decided to show up, the dark horse, and he brought his pet. The room rippled with uncomfortable laughter. Tanner walked over to us, his mother and Uncle Cyrus trailing behind him like vultures. Marcus, Tanner smirked, looking me up and down. Who dressed you? You look like a waiter who got lost. Seriously, it's embarrassing. You try so hard to look like us, but you just can't pull it off, can you? It's the posture. It's the aura. You reek of desperation. He turned to Nina. And you cleaned up nice, but we all know what's underneath, don't we? Trash is trash, no matter how much silk you wrap it in. You two are a matching set. The reject CEO and his street rat bodyguard. Tell me, Marcus, does she eat from a bowl on the floor? That's enough, Tanner, I said, stepping forward. Is it? Tanner leaned in close, his breath hot on my face. You know, my dad and I were looking at the family tree. It's amazing how one mistake can ruin a legacy. Your father was a good man, Marcus, until he married her, your mother. She polluted the bloodline. She raised you wrong. She raised you to think you were equal, and that is the cruelest lie of all. I saw red. I clenched my fist. Don't, Nina whispered, touching my arm. That's what he wants. Suddenly, a waiter walked by with a tray of flaming cocktails. As he passed, someone bumped him. The tray went flying straight at me. It wasn't an accident. I saw the shove. The flaming alcohol splashed toward my face. In a split second, Nina shoved me back and took the brunt of it on her jacket, shrugging it off and stamping out the flames before they could spread. Panic erupted. Oh my God, Tanner shouted, feigning shock, but his eyes were dancing with glee. Look at that. The curse strikes again. Fire follows him everywhere. He's dangerous. He's going to burn this whole building down. Uncle Cyrus stepped forward, shaking his head theatrically. Marcus, this is a sign. You're a liability. You bring destruction. For the safety of the guests, you should leave. Go back to wherever you go. I'm not leaving, I said, brushing soot off my shoulder. Then stay and be humiliated, Tanner hissed. But don't say we didn't warn you. The attacks got personal. They brought in Vanessa. Vanessa was my ex-fiancée, the woman who left me 5 years ago when the company's stock dipped and I was struggling. She was beautiful, blonde, the picture of what the Sterling family wanted. She showed up at the hospital a few days later. I was there checking on my grandfather, Arthur Sterling. Grandpa Arthur was the only one who ever loved me, but his mind was going. Dementia. He spent his days staring at a chessboard, trying to remember a game he played with my grandmother, Rose, who had disappeared 20 years ago. I was sitting by his bed when Vanessa walked in, crying. Marcus, she sobbed. I heard about the fire. I was so worried. Nina was standing by the door, arms crossed. She didn't buy it. Neither did I. What do you want, Vanessa? I asked coldly. I want you back, she wept, reaching for my hand. I made a mistake leaving you. I love you. Before I could answer, the door opened. Tanner and Uncle Cyrus walked in. Well, isn't this touching? Tanner drawled. The reunion of the Beauty and the Beast. Shut up, Tanner, I said. Oh, come on, Marcus. Tana laughed, walking over to Vanessa and placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't actually believe her, do you? Look at her. She's perfection. And look at you. You really think a woman like this loves you for your personality? Please. She's here because she feels sorry for you, or maybe she just missed the credit card. He looked at Vanessa. Tell him, darling, tell him how you used to laugh about his hair. Tell him how you used to complain that his family dragged down your social standing. Vanessa looked down, silent. See, Tana grinned. You're a novelty, Marcus, a charity project, but you're not husband material. You're not sterling material. You're just the placeholder until the real heir takes over. He pointed to himself. Get out, I said, my voice shaking with rage. We are leaving, Uncle Cyrus said smoothly. We're taking Arthur home. He shouldn't be exposed to your volatility. You're not taking him, I stood up. I have medical power of attorney, Cyrus smiled, pulling out a document. And the board is meeting tomorrow. We're going to discuss your mental stability, the fire, the violence, the paranoia. It's not looking good for you, nephew. They wheeled Grandpa Arthur out. As they left, Tana leaned back in. By the way, he whispered, that bodyguard of yours, I looked into her. She's an orphan, no family, no history. If she disappears, nobody will even file a report, just like nobody cares about you. The breaking point was the shareholders' meeting. This was their endgame. Tana and Cyrus had called an emergency vote to remove me as CEO. They claimed I had leaked confidential designs to a competitor. The boardroom was packed. The air was thick with tension. I sat at one end of the long mahogany table. Tana sat at the other, looking like a king on his coronation day. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, Tana began, standing up and buttoning his jacket. It brings me no joy to do this, but we have a cancer in this company. He pointed a long, pale finger at me. Marcus Sterling has betrayed us. We have proof, emails, bank transfers, showing that he sold our new tech to our rivals. Why? Greed? Spite? Or maybe, Tana paused for effect, looking around the room with wide, mock-sad eyes. Maybe it's just his nature. He let that hang in the air. His nature. You see, Tana continued, packing the room. Some people are builders. The Sterlings are builders. We create civilizations. And some people, well, some people are destroyers. They come from chaos. They thrive in dirt. Marcus can't help it. It's in his blood. He sees something beautiful and he wants to break it. He sees something pure and he wants to dirty it. He slammed his hand on the table. He doesn't belong here. Look at him. He sits in that chair like he's waiting for a handout. He's not a leader. He's a thug in a three-piece suit. He's primitive, and we need to cut him loose before he drags us all back to the Stone Age. The shareholders were murmuring. They were buying it. The racism was thinly veiled, but it was wrapped in fear, and fear sells. I move for an immediate vote of no confidence, Uncle Cyrus said from the side. Seconded, Tana grinned. Pack your box, Marcus. Go back to the gutter. I'm sure you'll feel more at home among the garbage. I stood up slowly. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. Are you done, Tana? I asked quietly. I'm done when you're out of my building, he shouted, his face twisting into an ugly snarl. It's not your building, a voice rang out from the back of the room. The double doors swung open. It wasn't security. It wasn't the police. It was Grandpa Arthur. He was walking, actually walking, leaning heavily on a cane, but upright, and beside him, supporting his arm, was Nina. But it was the woman on his other side that made the room gasp. She was older, her hair white as snow, but her eyes were sharp. She wore a simple dress, but she carried herself with an authority that sucked the air out of the room. Grandma Rose, I whispered. Tana froze, his face went white. Uncle Cyrus dropped his pen. Impossible, Cyrus muttered. She's dead. Not dead, Rose Sterling said, her voice shaking with 20 years of suppressed rage. Just forgotten and hidden. She walked to the head of the table. Nina helped her sit in the chairman's seat, Tana's seat. Tana scrambled away like a frightened child. I remember, Grandma Rose said, looking directly at Cyrus. For 20 years, I had amnesia. I lived a quiet life, cared for by a kind woman, Nina's mother. But when I saw this building again, when I saw you, she pointed a trembling finger at Uncle Cyrus. I remember the car. I remember the night of the accident. I remember hearing you on the phone, Cyrus. You told the driver to hit me. You said, make sure she doesn't walk away. She's standing in the way of the inheritance. The boardroom erupted. She's lying, Tana screamed. He was losing it. The mask of civility was cracking, revealing the monster underneath. She's senile, she's a crazy old hag, just like Marcus. They're conspiring against us. Look at them, they're weak. I am the future, I am the superior man, I deserve this company, me. Tanner lunged at the table, grabbing a heavy crystal pitcher. He was going to throw it at Grandma Rose. You should have died, he shrieked. You and your mongrel grandson, you polluted this family, you let him in. He drew back his arm. Nina didn't just move this time, she flew. She vaulted over the conference table, sliding across the mahogany like an action star. She caught Tanner's arm mid-swing. You talk too much, she growled. She twisted his arm. Tanner screamed as the pitcher shattered on the floor. Nina spun him around, kicked the back of his knee, and slammed his face into the table. She held him there, her forearm pressing down on his neck. Let me go, Tanner sputtered, spit flying from his mouth. Get your dirty hands off me, you servant, you slave, you're nothing, you're dirt, you're all dirt. I walked over to him. The entire board was watching. I leaned down until my face was inches from his. Look at you, Tanner, I said softly. He looked up, his eyes wild, filled with hate and tears. You called me a savage, I said. You called me dirty, you insulted my mother, you insulted my appearance. You thought your skin made you a king, you thought you ran the world. I straightened up, buttoning my jacket. But look at you now, pinned down by the woman you called trash, defeated by the man you called a mistake. You're not a king, Tanner. You're just a scared little boy who realizes he's not special. You're still ugly, Tanner wheezed, desperate for one last hurt. You look cheap. And you, I said, signaling for security, are going to prison. The police arrived minutes later. They had been called by Nina. They had the evidence, the financial records Uncle Cyrus falsified, the payoff to the hitman who threw the lighter, and Grandma Rose's testimony. As they dragged Tanner out in handcuffs, he was still screaming. He wasn't screaming about his innocence. He was screaming slurs. He was screaming that it wasn't fair, that the world was broken because people like me were winning. He called me every name he could think of, targeting my skin, my nose, my hair. You're a stain, he howled as they shoved him into the elevator. You'll never be one of us, never. The doors closed, silencing his hate. The room was quiet. I looked at the shareholders. They looked ashamed. They looked down at their papers, unable to meet my eyes. The meeting is adjourned, I said. That evening, the Sterling estate was quiet for the first time in my life. The tension was gone. The curse was lifted. I sat on the balcony, looking out over the city lights. My leg was shaking. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving a deep exhaustion. Nina walked out. She had changed back into her hoodie and jeans. She held 2 beers. She handed one to me. You okay, boss? She asked. I took the beer. He really hated me, Nina. It wasn't just greed. He hated me. He hated my face. He hated my blood. Nina sat on the railing looking at me. He hated you because you're strong, Marcus. Weak men hate strength. They try to call it something else. Savagery, aggression, dirt. Because they're terrified that if they actually have to compete with you on a level playing field, they'll lose. She took a sip. And he did lose, big time. I looked at her. You saved my life. You saved my grandmother. You saved my legacy. Just doing my job, she shrugged. No, I said, putting the beer down. Tanner said we were 2 rats finding each other in the sewer. Nina laughed. Yeah, he was poetic with his insults, wasn't he? I think he was wrong, I said, reaching out and taking her hand. Her skin was rough, calloused from fighting, but warm. I think we're 2 survivors finding each other in a storm. Nina looked down at our hands. Then she looked up, and for the first time her guard dropped. Her eyes were soft. I like that better, she whispered. I am Marcus Sterling. I am black, I am proud, and I am the CEO of this family. The hate is still out there. I know it is. There will always be Tanners in the world. Men who think their lineage makes them gods, who think they can bully and shame and push us down. They will attack our looks, our families, our worth. They will try to make us feel small to make themselves feel big. But looking at my grandfather playing chess with my grandmother inside, and holding the hand of the woman who stood by me when the world was burning, I realized something. Their hate is loud, it screams, it breaks things. But our joy, our resilience, it endures. And that is the only legacy that matters.